nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello, welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby Blog. I'm Jonny McGinty. I will try and hide my delight at the fact that it's a very short and very Glasgow Warriors-centric episode this evening. So, in the spirit of everybody in Scottish Rugby wants everyone to get behind Glasgow, we are making it an all-public episode this week. Everything tonight free for everybody. If you do want it without the ads or you want access to our super secret Facebook group, you can head along to Patreon, patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Pod, where for the cost of a Warriors pie every month, you can get involved. We'll have the super secret Facebook group. We'll be back as usual to 50% public pod, 50% Patreon only next week to either commiserate or look forward to Glasgow in the final. But for the moment, to join me looking over last week's game and looking forward to this one's, I'm joined by Mark Riley. Hello, Mark.
Hi there. How you doing?
Did I catch you off guard, Mark? And also by Leslie Ramage. Hello, Leslie. How are you?
Hello, Jonny. Yes, I am all fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
Tremendous. We'll start off with a little bit of news this week. Not a huge amount, but we'll start with another bit of Glasgow news. The worst kept secret in Scottish rugby for the last few weeks became official today. Jamie Ritchie is heading to the Warriors next season. I still remain largely of the opinion that Jack Dempsey is an irreplaceable player, but as good a job as we could do for replacing certainly as abrasiveness, Leslie, with Jamie Ritchie coming next year.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a nice little, I'm not going to say surprise, but it wasn't really. But yeah, good that it's finally been confirmed, because it was. I was beginning to wonder for a while there what was happening. But yeah, good, great player. You know, do have turnovers for days, and you know he's, as you say, he's not a replacement for Jack Dempsey, but he's pretty bloody good. And you're welcome, by the way. Just Glasgow welcome.
I think you'll find he came from Perpignan, but whatever. Mark, we're not obviously doing our usual 50-22s, which we would do for the Patreons, things that have turned your week around in rugby this week. But I think mine would be everything around Jamie Ritchie's announcement for the Warriors this morning. If you haven't seen it, Glasgow announced Jamie Ritchie with a very old picture of Mark, I'd say maybe around a 17-year-old Jamie Ritchie in a Glasgow top saying he's coming home, which is an excellent piece of winding up Glasgow, obviously. But you could see the shoulder of somebody else in the picture, and he clearly wasn't one who wanted to be hung out to dry like that all on his own. So Jamie Ritchie on his personal socials revealed the full picture, and it's also got a 17-year-old Ali Miller and a 17-year-old Xander Fagerson in it. So he's obviously either ingratiated himself to the squad or he's making himself a bit of a target already, Mark.
Yeah, perhaps maybe he lost a bet with Xander when they were playing for the under-20s or something. But yeah, I thought that was a fantastic piece of trolling by them. I didn't see the full picture, by the way. I didn't realise that, but yeah, I thought getting a picture of him as a youngster in a Glasgow shirt was very good. I do wonder, Leslie, you were saying about the confirmation not coming through. I heard this week that Perpignan are now guaranteed to go into the playoffs for relegation in the Pro 14. Mathematically, now they can't stay up, and I wonder if that was what was being waited on.
Well, maybe, yeah.
I can imagine a player at Jamie Ritchie's caliber having a get-out clause. Basically, yeah, I'll come play for you, I'm not playing. Pro need it. I like my eyes.
I think that happens with Hugh Jones the first time he left Glasgow, because he was to go to Beyond the first time and then they got relegated and he ended up not going. So there certainly is previous for that. Other contract news, which I think is well worth discussion, is over the last few days, obviously with the PWR season now being finished, all of the leavers and movers on have been announced across there. Lots and lots of Scottish players leaving lots of PWR clubs, Mark, and some of the clubs themselves, some of the players being quite frank about the fact that they've been called back to Scotland for the new centrally contracted pathways. Obviously, there was a report in the paper a week or so ago about Glasgow and Edinburgh and the SRU looking to enter at least one club in the PWR. Do you think that's more likely now that we're calling all these players back on these central contracts? Do you think there's any relation, or is it just a coincidence of the timing?
I have to say, I don't think it makes us entering a club into the PWR more likely. However, I think there is probably a drive led by your friend and ours, Mr. Nusifora, to make our clubs, our women's clubs, more competitive in the Celtic Challenge. And the easiest way to do that is to attract our top players back. The question for me is how they go about that attraction. One of the clubs, I think it was Bristol, but it might have been Loughborough, Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, had said, we respect the decision they have had to make. That's not throwaway wording. That wording was there very specifically. They have had to make that decision for financial reasons, and that worries me somewhat.
Yeah, it was Bristol, Leslie, and that's kind of what I was going to ask you. I mean, obviously, there's a huge caveat here in that we would like to know a little bit more of the contract details, both of the central contracts and of the contracts that the players are coming back on. So I'm going to ask you to kind of crystal ball it a little bit. Do you think it is overall a positive or a negative for the national team, for the Celtic Challenge team, for the players? Is this a good move that we're kind of systematically making, do you think?
I am really on the fence with it, because I think on one hand it's good to have all your players back and you have the control over them and their training and their game time and all that kind of stuff, which is a good thing. It works for Ireland, but I don't know if the way it's been done is the best way to do it. Forcing players to make a choice to either play for a PWR club or you don't get your Scotland contract, I think essentially is what is happening. So it's either you have to come back, play for Glasgow or Edinburgh and be paid, or you stay with your PWR club and you might get your petrol money if you're lucky, depending on who you are, obviously, what contract you have. But I'm not sure the way they're doing it pleases me greatly, but obviously a lot of the girls have made that choice from what we can see, that they're making that choice to return. So you would hope that it is worthwhile, because it would be really poor if the girls are coming back and they're going to end up being paid less money, or that they would, between their PWR contract and their Scotland contract, if they're only going to get their Scotland contract they're still losing out on money effectively when they're not paid much anyway. So until we see the details, I'm on the fence. For me, it feels like they're trying to. I think it's too soon to have a Scottish team in the PWR, and also it would effectively be like mostly a Scotland team.
Mhm.
So they're already playing in the most of them are already playing in the PWR. And also you have the complexities of, it would be a Scottish Union run club in the PWR, which is not quite run by the RFU. So I don't think this is going to happen next season. It might happen, but I don't think it's going to be next season. So they're going to have to play Celtic Challenge, I would imagine. And then I guess it would definitely make Edinburgh and Glasgow more competitive. They're getting absolutely hammered by the Irish teams, so that would hopefully change. But yeah, lots of fine detail needing worked out, I think.
Yeah. So from a story that's been going around for ages to a story that I guess we could have seen coming a little bit with the announcement of the new pathways the other week. One final piece of news that it feels like came out of absolutely nowhere yesterday. Darcy Graham was back in GB7s. Mark, I suspect that you and I have probably got the same answer to this question. What do you think his motivation is to go to GB7s for summer?
He wants to win. I mean, Darcy's a border player. He loves the sevens. He was awesome in the sevens, and why sit about in your bahookie? I think he'll just go and he'll enjoy it and he'll win. There are a fair few. I did clip the team list. I can't remember where I put it, but there's an awful lot of Scottish players in the GB7s for Bordeaux.
Yeah, Killy Barretto's back in the team, which is good to see.
Yes, I thought that as well. I was surprised he didn't get a pro contract when the sevens ended because he was very good. But I was interested in the team list. He isn't affiliated with anybody. He's not even listed as Scottish Rugby.
He's had a fairly serious couple of years of quite bad injuries, I think.
Is he?
Hopefully, this is the start of him hopefully getting back to it. And I guess kind of then, Leslie, the flip side to Darcy's motivation, having just spoken about Killy Barretto, is from an Edinburgh fan point of view or a Scottish 15s fan point of view, it's a risky choice.
Yes, Darcy's injury profile is quite extensive. I think we would agree. So for him to go off and play sevens is a risk, and I get why you would want to go to Bordeaux in the summer. I get it, but the first Scotland game is the 4th of July, so it's only a month away. If he gets a semi-serious injury, he is not playing those games. And then now don't get me wrong, we've got a couple of Kyles that could step in. It's fine, but Darcy would want to be there, and I'd hate for him to be injured again for another summer season, or whatever, or for Edinburgh, because he was out for a good chunk of time already. Hopefully it doesn't come to anything and just have a nice great time running them tries, and it's all good, but it is a worry. This just these a little tweak somewhere, and boom, ACL, you're out for the year.
Just another reason for me to keep banging the drum that I've been banging for ages, because I am not like McDonald, a World Rugby propagandist. These are summer friendlies. You can give them all the names you want. Your frontline players are meant to be having the summer off. You can put up all the posters that you want. He shouldn't be playing in these games anyway. Neither should most of our frontline players. I don't think. I think it would be a mistake to take a first choice team for these summer games, but this is apparently the world we're in now. So before I get any further down that particular road, because it's been a bee in my bonnet for a while. Let's move on to last weekend. URC quarterfinal at Scotstoun. Glasgow 33, Connacht 21. Possibly not as comfortable as a few people would have liked. Not as comfortable, Mark, as a few people predicted. Solid defensive effort from Glasgow, though, Mark, because Connacht didn't come to mess around.
No, absolutely. I mean, the score was very similar to that which I predicted, but I thought the game would be dusted a lot earlier. I didn't think Connacht would keep coming back. I thought Glasgow would establish that scoreline. I think I said 60 minutes and then park the bus, and Connacht only led for the first few minutes, but the defence, I was watching the game back, and interestingly, for Connacht's first try, Stafford McDowell was defending the fringe of the ruck. And if you watch it back again, he's absolutely howling at Alex Samuel to step out. Samuel was defending right behind the ruck, and Stafford's calling at him to move over and let I think it was Darge take the back of the ruck, and they didn't get there in time, and that's when Connacht scored. So for me, that was Stafford knew what was going on. He could see what was going on. And that was a lapse in Glasgow's defence. I think for the want of that one small change in where the players are situated, I think they hold that off as well. But yeah, solid defensive effort. Connacht didn't go away, and good practice because the Bulls ain't going away either, right?
Yeah, that's not in doubt at all. I was about to ask Leslie, Mark, but I'm going to ask you instead. Quite a few big returns in the pack for Glasgow. It made a big difference. Scott Cummings in particular coming back was huge. We'll preview this week's game a little bit more later, but it's making a big difference to Glasgow, isn't it? It's a good time in the season for these guys to be coming back in the forwards particularly.
Yeah, hugely. I think Scott Cummings in particular, the difference he brings was fabulous. I think I posted on our chat during the game that there was one instance, I can't remember what it was, but he took contact and made a lovely little offload. And you forget, for somebody who's, his job is to be a big lad, right? That's fundamentally what he's supposed to do. But to also have the skills to ride the contact and make that wee offload is fantastic, and it brings a whole new dimension. Many other second rows would simply have taken that to ground. He has the skills to keep the ball alive, which is what Glasgow's game's all about, right?
And Leslie, when Glasgow found themselves in probably a tighter game than they expected early on, soaking up a lot more pressure certainly than they expected. Some nice touches in the kicking game as well. I mean, we forget sometimes, I think, exactly how good Glasgow's kick chase was, but there was a phenomenal 50-22 from Kyle Steyn. There was some really well-weighted kicks from George Horn. And it's something that Glasgow, I think it can almost be a little bit of a surprise, because Glasgow don't often rely on it, to see that it's actually something they're quite capable of. And I think it's probably something that's going to need tuned up again for this weekend.
Yeah, as you say, we don't think of Glasgow as a kicking-based team. They're very much ball in hand. But yes, I don't remember seeing Kyle Steyn kick like that before. That was a real shock to me. It was great, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't expect that from him at all. But it's good to know that he can do that, and you would hope that should the opportunity arise this weekend, he absolutely makes the most of it. And also you've got the likes of Ollie Smith, who can also boot the ball.
Yeah.
He's got. I didn't realise I can't remember what game it was. It was a game he started. I think he was on the wing, but yeah, he was putting in massive kicks. So yeah, great to see that they've got that in their arsenal to use. I hope they just use it smartly and don't give the ball away and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a skill to have. My concern would be the lack of George Horn at the weekend. That would be my big old worry for this week.
Yeah, obviously we haven't got a team, so we'll have to conjecture that one out. One thing I did notice, Mark, that I was quite pleased with, and I don't know how it came across on TV. Certainly, where we were sitting on Friday night in the East Stand, every single time that Adam Jones stopped the game, there was people around us, both Glasgow and Connacht fans, going, "What's he talking about now?" Because there were some fairly interesting officiating moments, I think, for both sides on Friday night. And one thing that I was quite pleased with is that this is not a kind of stellar bit of Glasgow's game or Scotland, anybody to do with Scotland's game for quite a long time. But the leadership group certainly managed to keep quite calm, and I thought managed their way through that quite well, because it would have been really easy, I think, and this isn't a Glasgow thing, for players on both teams to get quite frustrated with some of the officiating decisions. And I thought Glasgow did quite well to kind of keep the head and not start to lose the rag with it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't the best refereeing performance, but it wasn't, like you say, I don't think it was against either team. It was just there was some kind of ropey, odd things going on. I think, and to be honest, I mean, I can't speak highly enough about Kyle Steyn, but the way he deals with the refs in particular, I think is very good. He remains calm at all times, and I think therefore gets the message across, and that's what makes a difference. I think, I think people dragging George Horn away from chatting to the ref is probably the way to go. No, George, Kyle's in his way. You just shut up.
There's a touch of the Rachel Malcolms about him.
Leslie, we will.
About Steyn.
Yeah, very much so. We'll finish the review with you, Leslie, because you had in our group chat expressed some concerns about the bench on Friday night. I wasn't feeling too hot about the bench either until I saw the Connacht bench, to be honest. I thought it wasn't too bad on Friday. Obviously, Jonny comes on and got in amongst the tries, which was nice. There wasn't a massive step down, but I think when we come to talk about this weekend, not a massive step down is not good enough in a bench when you're playing the Bulls. So are we looking, do you think, at similar concerns this week? Or are you pleased enough with the bench's performance on Friday that we're not feeling so bad about it?
I am concerned because I think not that Glasgow weren't the deserved winners, they were, but the Connacht, they I don't know how to word this nicely. Their players are probably not quite the same level as Glasgow's, and as you say, the Bulls are going to be, especially their forwards. I think we might see, where possible, first names on the team sheet playing as long as they possibly can to hold out as long as they can, and Franco only substituting if things are going really bad or an injury or something like that. So we might see him not using his bench if it's really tight. That would be but then it's a catch-22, isn't it? Do you take the risk and play these guys who did perform well last week but are not, or maybe not quite at the same level, and then you're up against some of the baddest guys in the league? It's risky. But then,
well,
do you hold on so they get to the final? I don't know. I'm not a rugby coach, but yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, the good news is that these internationals in the summer mean less than nothing, so we could rest them after the next couple of weeks of games.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jonny. I think we
We'll,
should absolutely rest in our frontline troops for these summer internationals. This Nations Cup's it's a fabrication of world rugby, and it doesn't matter. The World Cup rankings are decided. It is of no relevance to us whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a massive waste of time, but I'm desperate, as much as it winds me up almost constantly, not to get dragged into it. We will look ahead. We're going to project a little bit, possibly, because we obviously haven't got either team sheet yet. Mark, we'll start with the biggest position of concern for Glasgow, I think, certainly in terms of who's going on the team sheet. For me, speaking about the subs on Friday night, George Horn probably stayed on a lot longer than he needed to, given the condition he was in. Do you think we're going to see either George Horn or Jamie Dobie on the team sheet on Saturday afternoon? And if we don't, is that a next level disaster?
I think, best case scenario, we see both of them. The coaches and players that are being interviewed this week are clearly saying that Horn might make it. The problem is they're both borderline. So, yeah, it could go either way. And if neither of them are fit, bear in mind that Ben Afshar was in a moon boot last week. We've seen the moon boot on Friday night. Yeah, that's a disaster. That's Jack Oliver and some bloke from Ayr being the scrum halves, right? Did Glasgow have a fifth scrum half? Academy boy, presumably. But that would be, that for a semi-final against the Bulls. Holy. So, yeah, I think for both of them to be injured on the basis that Afshar might already be anyway would be really bad juju. Best case scenario, they're both fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't seen them since tomorrow, right?
Yeah. We've not seen him since the Six Nations, but Jamie Dobie is a generational difference maker, I think. Yes. He really, really showed out in sort of that period between the 1872 Cup and getting injured in the Six Nations. So having him back for next week and then potentially a game in 2 weeks' time would be massive. Speaking then of people who have really lit it up since the turn of the year, Leslie, I feel like we keep asking this, and at some point we're going to be wrong. Surely we're not getting another performance from Kyle Steyn on Saturday as good as we got last Friday.
I'm naturally a pessimist, Jonny, but I actually think we will, because he's been absolutely solid the whole season. He has never let Glasgow down, or very bloody rarely. So I fully expect him to be super focused. The Kyle Steyn that we've seen week in, week out for Glasgow. I can't see him mucking it up this week. Can't see it. I hope I am right, because I would be gutted for them if he was to have a poor week. So fingers crossed. But yes, I can't see him being poor at all.
No, I feel like since the start of the Six Nations, possibly even before that, probably since before Christmas and the pool stages of the Champions Cup, I think we've said a few times, surely Kyle Steyn can't continue at this level indefinitely. And then, to be fair, a couple of times he hasn't, because he's gone up another level that we didn't even know he was capable of. So, I think for 2 more games, he's a player that I would be relying, I think, to be able to carry that on. And, with everything that's going on around potentially what's happening at scrum half, Glasgow probably need it. Mark, I think the other thing we need to talk about in terms of what's going on around Kyle Steyn and around the backs, Franco's not a big chopper and changer, but despite the fact that we spoke about the kicking game that Glasgow managed to put into play on Friday night already, the one position we've not spoken about is 10. Dan Lancaster, he didn't exactly set the heather alight, I think it would be fair to say, on Friday. He's had some fairly solid games this year. He's had a couple of pretty good games this year. He was very, very quiet on Friday. And I didn't think, certainly from our vantage point, that he probably contributed as much as Glasgow needed him to in the situations where you'd be expecting your 10 to contribute. Do you think Franco goes to Adam Hastings, or do you think we stick with Dan Lancaster?
So I think if Horn's injured, he absolutely goes to Hastings, because with the best rule in the world, Lancaster's kicking is bobbins, and you're going to need that in what will likely be a tight match. But even if Horn is fit, I think Hastings offers more threat with the ball in hand, and that's going to keep. They need to keep that Bulls back row honest, and if they don't think the 10's going to be a threat with ball in hand, they're just not going to. They'll be able to drift out to the centres and focus on the scrum half, and that's a fierce back row the Bulls can put out. Yeah. So for me, I'm patently not a coach, let alone any one of Franco's calibre, but I would probably be looking to Hastings. But again, it's a whole structure. I think Franco will go 6-2. So you bring Hastings in at 10. And who do you put on the bench? It's an odd one.
Ollie Smith, I would imagine.
Yeah, possibly Ollie Smith. Or Stafford, and put Shug at 13.
Shug's still injured,
I haven't seen. Yeah, I was going to say I haven't seen the availabilities, but he was certainly on the injured list last week.
I heard, I'm sure it was only tonight, I heard he was back in training.
Okay.
That's not the same as match fit, of course, so he should be.
Yeah. And then I guess we kind of spoke about this a little bit already, Leslie, when we spoke about last week's game, but the other area where, as you've already said, with the Bulls coming to Murrayfield on Saturday, that we might see Franco make some changes is, do you think he makes changes in the pack, or do you think he just keeps the ones he's got and relies on the bench less?
I think he might go for his heaviest pack that he's got available to him for starting anyway, because they are Mahusiv boys, and if he can try and get as much parity, especially at scrum time, as possible, and try and, as you were sort of saying last week, Mark, try and hold out as long as possible, and not use the bench if you don't have to. He will change the props, because I think he always does, but they might need to hang on longer than they normally would. That's my working theory at the moment, anyway. So whoever's our biggest and heaviest boys might be the starters. So it might be a bit of tinkering, but it might,
I think
much in it.
I think one of the challenges with propping is, and I've seen Franco obviously mixes it up. Sometimes he starts Talakai and has Xander on the bench. I think the problem is, particularly in big matches, if you risk the ref beginning to think you're painting the wrong picture. That's the language that we use, right? I'm seeing the wrong picture. it doesn't matter if you change up your props. And suddenly Xander comes on and he's winning. The ref has already got a bad idea of what we're doing in his head. So I think, yeah, absolutely. You start, as you say, Leslie, you start your biggest, your strongest pack, scrummaging pack.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be quite clear. We know what's coming. They're coming for us in the set piece, right? They've got the Bulls have some phenomenal backs. Let's be quite clear. But the set piece is where I think they will think they've got the upper hand.
Yeah, I think Franco's smart enough to know that what Glasgow have to do on Saturday afternoon is go out quickly and show them that they don't. I think you're right, Leslie. I think I'd expect to see a big, heavy pack. I'd expect to see a pack that's going to try and do maximum damage to the Bulls early doors, because, as you rightly say, Mark, they're coming out expecting that they'll win the set piece, and they'll probably win a lot of the breakdown, and Glasgow want to come out and take that away from them as quickly as they can, because Glasgow probably have the upper hand in the backs, I think you might say. So what they want to do is prove that forward advantage that the Bulls think they have isn't as big as what they think it is. So
yeah, I mean,
let's go on, Mark.
The backs, at 9 they've got Ambrose Papier. At 10, this is who they played last week. I'm assuming the same boys will play it, right? 9 Ambrose Papier, 10 Henrik Pollard, 13 Kanan Moody, Arense at 14, and Will LaRue at 15. That's not a weak back division, right? That's
No.
I think we have a phenomenal back division. But yeah, interestingly, and one of the things that I did pick up from last week's game, they didn't swap out their hooker. Grobbelaar started at 2 and he played the full 80. So I wonder if that's somewhere to really go after him, because he clearly, you don't keep your hooker on for 80 unless you've got no faith in your bench hooker, right? So they've maybe got an injury problem there. I only found that just before we all logged in, so I didn't have time to look it up. But if they've got an injury problem there,
It's the Sean Everett playbook, isn't it?
Know how to put pressure on a hooker, right?
Yes.
All right, let's. It's been short but sweet this week, but I think we've kind of gone through what was important last week, what we think is going to happen this week with the information that we've got. But there's one way to finish that off. It's hotspot time as usual. Mark, prediction for Saturday afternoon?
Oh, I actually think it'll be quite a high scoring match, because of the sets of backs that both teams have. But I think it will be tight. I think Glasgow are going to have to score more than 30 to win. But I think it's going to be, I say 33-29.
That is exactly the number that was in my head.
Interesting. I think there will be less than a try in it, and Glasgow will have to score more than 30 to win it.
Leslie?
33-29 to Glasgow, obviously, just to be quite clear about that.
I'm going to be slightly more conservative. I think it will be very close. In the last game they played, it was within 5, I think. So I'm going to go Glasgow 20, 27, and Bulls 25, something like that. I think it'll be really close.
Yeah, I think I have a long-standing and lifelong policy of never backing my own team in games that matter, especially not publicly. I don't think either of you are a million miles away from being correct, though. I'm not telling you what I think the score will be, because I've built my entire sports watching life on never doing that. But I think both of your ideas, I think, are not far off what I would have said. So we're headed down for it. What I should have said, actually, and this is a not bad way to finish it off, because we're very quick to question decision making coming from within the corridors of power at Murrayfield, particularly when it comes to engaging fans in the game. A family of 4 for 50 quid on Saturday afternoon is a great deal. So I'm very excited. We're all going. Quite a few of the kids that I coach are going as well. I think
Awesome.
Credit where it's due to the SRU. That's a nice piece of business. That should make for a good atmosphere. 15,000 tickets sold, which isn't bad on a week's notice, and I think that probably contributes to it. So the atmosphere should hopefully be a bit exciting. Hopefully there's plenty of people there that are going to get behind Glasgow. I've got behind Edinburgh in knockout games at Murrayfield, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there. And if I could do it, I feel like the rest of you could do it. So
yeah, genuinely, people listening to us who feel they don't want to support Glasgow, go along just to watch some bloody great rugby. You know, at the end of the day, it's a semi-final of a major world tournament with 2 of the best club sides on the planet. Let's be quite clear about that, right? If you like rugby, whether you're an Edinburgh fan or not, go along and watch it. The game will be fantastic. That said, because I'm miles away and because of the price of tickets, in one of those events that presages disaster, I'm waiting to the final and I'm going along with it.
Same, Mark. Even as an Edinburgh fan, if Glasgow make the final, I will go along. I probably won't have time to get a Glasgow shirt, but if they do, I'll go along wearing my Scotland top and cheer on Luigi.
It's fine if you don't get a shirt, because if we learned anything from you going to the Scotland-France game, you having the shirt on is a bad sign anyway.
All right, put my best Leinster top on then.
The final is the day of my class's primary 7 prom, and I've been telling them for ages that I'll come along to the prom. So if I go to all of these knockouts and then Glasgow get to a home final and I can't go, I'm going to be devastated. So we'll see what happens with the kickoff time and stuff. I might either leave the game early or be late to the prom, or a little bit of both, but we'll see what happens. But we will leave it on uncharacteristically great behaviour from the SRU to make it very accessible for us to go. Loads of people go in, get along, support Glasgow. Mark says it's going to be a really high scoring game, so it's worth coming even if you are not supporting Glasgow. And we will be back next week to dissect it no matter what happens. But for just now, goodbye. It's goodbye from Mark.
Cheers, folks.
And Leslie.
See you later.
Bye, everyone.